Most financial advice will not actually set you free. Not because it's wrong, but because it's dangerously incomplete. The rules you were given were built for average outcomes. And average outcomes mean working until your body forces you to stop. Today I'm handing you 19 rules nobody taught you formally. These are the rules that quietly separate the struggling from the free. Rule 14 is going to feel completely, entirely wrong to you. Stay with me, because that one changes the whole equation. By the end, you won't just have advice sitting in your head. You'll have a compass you can actually use starting tonight. Hit subscribe if you want to keep running the real math. Let's get into it. There's a doctor in this story you need to hear. He earns $300,000 every single calendar year. He drives the car, lives in the zip code, wears the watch, and he will retire with almost nothing to show for it. That is Rule 1, and it will reset everything you think. Your income is not your wealth, not even close to it. Wealth is what stays when the paycheck stops arriving permanently. Income is water running through your hands every single month. Wealth is what you managed to hold on to before it left. The doctor spends to match the identity his income created for him. The nurse earning $80,000, saving 30%, builds actual freedom. Same city, same hospital, completely different financial destination years later. Stop measuring your financial health by what comes in monthly. Start measuring it by what stays and quietly compounds over time. Rule 2 is where most financial plans collapse before they start. You've tried budgeting and it felt like a punishment sentence. That's because budgets are built on restriction instead of intention. Research in behavioral economics confirms that restriction-based plans fail repeatedly. They fail the same way aggressive diets always eventually fail completely. You don't need a budget, you need a spending design instead. A spending design starts with what actually matters most to you. You fund those things first fully, without guilt or second-guessing. Then you look at what's left and make it work accordingly. The difference sounds small, but it changes everything about your follow-through. Punishment plans get abandoned, designed plans get protected and honored consistently. Rule 3 is the one that separates people who recover financially. The people who never recover from money mistakes share one pattern. They treat the loss as a verdict instead of a tuition fee. Every financial mistake you have ever made came with a lesson attached. The question is whether you collected the lesson or just the pain. Behavioral research shows that financial self-blame actually increases future poor decisions. Shame is not a learning state, it's a paralysis state entirely. Reframe every mistake as data and your next decision gets sharper. You paid for that lesson already, you might as well graduate. Rule 4 is one nobody talks about honestly enough out loud. Your environment is spending your money before you even open your wallet. The apps engineered with friction-free one-click purchasing are spending your money. The neighborhood where everyone drives a certain kind of car is spending it. The dinner table where everyone orders without looking at the prices is spending it. A Princeton study found that peer spending behavior predicts individual spending more than income does. You are not as in control of your wallet as you believe. Audit your environment the way you would audit a financial statement instead. Who and what surrounds you is quietly shaping every financial choice you make. Now we move into the foundation, the ground everything else gets built on. Rule 5 gets misunderstood because of one single word people use wrong. People call the emergency fund savings, and that framing quietly destroys it. It is not savings, it is structural insurance for your financial life. Without it, one bad month unwinds every investment position you've built carefully. 3 to 6 months of actual living expenses, liquid, boring, untouched, always. Not in your brokerage account where you might be tempted to touch it. A separate account, named something that reminds you what it's actually for. This fund isn't exciting. It's the reason your other money survives. Rule 6 is the one that ends the investing versus debt payoff debate. If your credit card charges 22% interest annually, think clearly. The stock market would need to return 22% just for you to break even on investing while carrying that debt. Split that sentence in half and let both pieces land separately. You cannot out-invest high-interest debt. The math physically does not work. The avalanche method, highest interest rate first, wins mathematically over the long run. The snowball method, smallest balance first, wins psychologically for many real people. Pick the one you will actually finish. Both beat carrying the balance forever. Kill the high-interest debt like it is actively on fire, because it is. Rule 7 is where most good intentions go to permanently die quietly. You know you should be saving. You intend to invest monthly. Intention without a system is just a recurring disappointment cycle repeating itself. James Clear's research on habit formation confirms that automation beats willpower consistently. Set up automatic transfers to your investment account the day after payday. Not when you remember, not when you feel ready, automatically and always. Auto-invest, auto-save, auto-pay your future self before you spend the rest. The discipline question disappears entirely when the system makes the decision for you. Rule 8 sounds familiar until you hear the part nobody mentions. Live on 80%, direct 20% toward building your future consistently. Most people know this rule, almost nobody applies the critical second half. Where that 20% goes determines whether you retire at 45 or 75. 20% sitting in a savings account earning 1% is not building freedom. 20% in tax-advantaged accounts invested in low-cost index funds actually is. The rate matters, but the account type and vehicle matter just as much. Now we enter the growth section, where ordinary people quietly separate from average. Rule 9 is the one that humbles every confident stock picker eventually. S&P 500 index fund data consistently shows that over 15-year periods, roughly 90% of actively managed funds underperform the simple index. Not occasionally, not in bad years, consistently across decades of documented market data. The guy who bought boring index funds every month and never checked obsessively built more than the guy trading on tips and conviction. Exciting investing feels productive. Boring investing actually produces results compounding quietly. Stop chasing what feels smart and start doing what the data confirms actually works. Rule 10 is the investment conversation almost no financial channel ever has. No index fund on the market compounds faster than a skill that doubles your salary. Human capital is your highest returning asset during your peak earning years specifically. $5,000 course or certification that earns you $20,000 more annually is a 400% return in year one. No brokerage account offers that kind of first-year return on invested capital. Invest in financial markets, but don't neglect the machine generating the money to invest. Your career is a financial instrument. Treat it like one accordingly. Rule 11 has a qualifier that most people who quote it miss entirely. Time in the market beats timing the market. That part is well documented and true. But there is one scenario where waiting briefly actually makes rational, defensible sense. If you are carrying high-interest consumer debt, that comes before market investing. Not because timing matters, but because the guaranteed return of eliminating 20% interest beats the uncertain market return every time mathematically. Clear the debt first, then invest immediately, and never pause investing again. Rule 12 is the rule that costs people hundreds of thousands of dollars invisibly. Two people earn identical salaries working identical jobs at identical companies right now. One pays $40,000 in taxes annually, the other pays $18,000 legally. The difference is not loopholes, it's tax-advantaged account strategy applied consistently. Maxing a 401k reduces your taxable income by $23,000 annually. An HSA adds another $4,000 in pre-tax contributions on top of that. Long-term capital gains are taxed at 0% for certain income brackets entirely. Tax strategy is not for the wealthy, it is how the informed stay ahead. Rule 13 is the one that requires a moment of honest self-examination. Check the source before you trust the financial advice, including this channel entirely. Someone who cannot afford to retire has no credible authority teaching retirement strategy. Someone who built wealth through an audience rather than through the advice they give has a conflict worth naming out loud. Look for evidence in someone's actual financial life before adopting their financial philosophy. Not their car, not their studio, their actual documented track record over time. Now we enter the counterintuitive section, the rules that feel wrong before they feel right. Rule 14 is the one I teased at the start of this video. Spending more sometimes saves you dramatically more over the full cost horizon. The cheap tires that fail in wet conditions cost far more than their price. The cheap lawyer who misses a clause costs you more than a competent one. The cheap supplement that doesn't work costs more per result than the one that actually does. This concept is called cost per use, and it flips the entire savings calculation. Divide the actual cost by the number of reliable uses you'll get from it. The expensive item divided by many uses beats the cheap item divided by one. Frugality applied without this filter is not saving money, it's spending money twice. Rule 15 is the one that will cost me comments, and I accept that. Your primary residence is not an investment, and the math confirms this every time. An investment generates cash flow into your pocket on a regular basis. Your house generates mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and opportunity costs flowing outward. Robert Shiller's long-term housing data shows inflation-adjusted home values barely move over a century. The house you live in is a lifestyle purchase with some equity attached. The house someone else pays rent on while you hold the mortgage is an investment. Know the difference before you count your home equity as financial freedom. Rule 16 is a rule about the enemy you carry inside your own head. Diversification is not just portfolio theory, it is protection from your own overconfidence specifically. Every person who went broke on a single concentrated position believed they had an edge. They had done the research, they had the conviction, they were sure this time. Behavioral finance calls this overconfidence bias, and it affects expert investors too, not just beginners. Spreading across asset classes is not giving up on returns, it is surviving your own blind spots. The market will humble your conviction eventually. Diversification is how you survive that humbling intact. Rule 17 reframes the entire purpose of money in a single question. At what hourly rate of freedom would you feel genuinely, deeply free? Most people have never calculated that number or asked themselves that directly. Money is not the goal. Money is what you exchange for time and choice. The scoreboard mentality, more than last year, more than your neighbor's balance, leads nowhere specific. The tool mentality asks, what does this money allow me to stop doing or start choosing? When money becomes a tool for reclaiming time, you spend it and save it completely differently. Now we reach the final section, the two rules that complete the entire compass. Rule 18 is the most important calculation most people will never actually do. Freedom is not a feeling, it is a number, and you can calculate it tonight. The 4% rule, drawn from the Trinity study at Trinity University, gives us the framework. It states that a portfolio can sustain a 4% annual withdrawal indefinitely with high probability. That means your freedom number is your annual expenses multiplied by 25 exactly. If you need $40,000 a year to live as you want, your number is $1 million. If you need $60,000, your number is $1.5 million total. Write that number down somewhere, you will actually see it regularly. A goal without a number is a wish, a number makes it a target. Rule 19 is the most honest rule in this entire list today. The perfect financial plan that you never follow is worth exactly nothing at all. The imperfect plan you actually execute consistently over years builds real, compounding freedom. Research on financial behavior consistently confirms that simplicity outperforms sophistication in real-world application. One index fund you actually invest in beats a perfect portfolio you never build. One automatic transfer you actually set up beats a spreadsheet you built and never funded. Done imperfectly and consistently is the only strategy that actually works over time. You started this video without a direction, and now you have 19 rules. Not a map with every turn pre-labeled, but a compass that works anywhere you are. The rules you skip today will be the ones you wish you'd started earlier. Save this video because you will need it again at a different stage. Drop a like if even one of these rules landed differently than you expected. Next video, I'm walking through exactly how to calculate your personal freedom number step by step. Every line of math, every assumption made visible, every variable you control explained clearly. That video is already built, and it is the one that changes the number.